Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of We Used to Be Journos, the podcast where two media insiders break down broken news. My name is Jan Fran, and my co-host is Antoinette Lattouf, and a very big welcome to all of the newbies that have started listening to our podcast.
Welcome, welcome indeed. I do want to say this is a safe space, but it's not always a safe space.
It's a dangerous space.
But it is an honest space. And for those who are watching on YouTube, our physical space is also different today. You've probably noticed because our studio is getting a bit of a spruce moose. So we're temporarily somewhere else. If you're looking and wondering why everything looks light and airy and breezy, it's because it's my living room. Because our studio is getting, just a bit of a facelift. I do, though, Jan, want to give a shout out to our Melbourne Ederati because our It's a No From Me live show in Melbourne is selling fast.
Hotcakes, baby. We're
not
very
only
happy with that.
selling fast, but beating Sydney in terms of tickets sold. And, we love to weigh in on that old Sydney-Melbourne rivalry.
Melbourne for the win. And I say this is a Sydney cider.
Melbourne for the win.
Yes, but if Sydney does do better in ticket sales, I will change my mind and opinion immediately. In fact, I will go for Brisbane if Brisbane is up there with the ticket sales.
Your loyalty can be bought. I love that.
Exactly. But I think what did help was that we announced our special guests for the Melbourne show last week.
Yes.
They are, of course, Nazeem Hussain and Gabby Bolt, who we love.
Yeah.
They're going to bring some comedy and some musical talent to the show. However, our Sydney guests we can finally reveal are, drum roll please.
I am so excited.
Very much.
Actress Claudia Karvan is going to sit down with us for a chat. And Fresh the Lion is going to perform. He is a legend. And I'm not just saying that because he wrote a song that includes my name.
Yes, indeed he did.
2025 genocide been televised. Pick a side, colonizer or colonized. Spot the lies, racism normalized. Silence incentivized. Don't speak, close your eyes. Sound the siren, there's a fire in the roof. They can't deny the truth. This Antoinette Lattouf. This is bigger than a song to spark up the party. This is spread peace to our sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Our Sydney guests, can't wait. They're so brilliant.
Is that the benchmark now for just choosing guests, whether
pretty
or
much.
not you are their muse?
Pretty much. I have to be their muse. I may also try my hand at rapping or dancing while Fresh is rapping, which I think both are equally atrocious, and you'll have to wait and see which Unco Nasai unleash on stage.
Yeah, wow, that's a real anti-plug for the show. Some people were going to buy tickets. Now they're just like, oh, fuck that. I don't want to see Antoinette Lattouf dance. Don't listen to her, everyone. Buy tickets. We're going to include info on where you can get them in the show notes, of course, wherever it is that you're listening to this or watching this, and they are in the bios of all of our social media platforms. That includes Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, probably.
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure.
Yeah. So make sure you head there to grab your tickets. Meanwhile, what is in the show?
What is on this show?
What is on this week's show?
Well, the year's winding down, but the fuckery, sadly, is not.
Is ramping up.
Yeah. So my no goes to Donald Trump, and more evidence that he thinks that democracy is a reality TV show where he just gets to be the judge, because he's launched what's essentially his own personal media leaderboard, and he gets to decide who he thinks is doing the worst job reporting on him. So more on that.
Okay. Well, my no from me comes to us courtesy of the TikTok Awards and allegations of racism on the red carpet. We're going to unpack all of that, as well as some of the media coverage or lack thereof around that incident. That's coming up a little bit later. Our big discussion. Ooh.
Yes, in the second half of the show. God, this is a big one, Jan, because it's the 2-year anniversary of the petition that more than 300 journalists signed. That's including you and I. And we signed that calling for better, more ethical, fairer reporting on Gaza and Israel.
That's right. We did that at the end of November 2023. So we're just going to take a bit of a look back on that letter. It's been 2 years now. We're going to see where we're at, give it a little bit of a scorecard, because it was really an important moment. I think is probably worth reflecting on.
Yeah, what's changed? What hasn't changed? How much have we changed?
Yes, exactly. And our yeses, of course. Well, listen, mine is a little bit more of a what is this?
Yeah, but a curious what is this?
A curious what is this,
yeah.
which may unfold to a yes, definitely not a no. Anyway, It's all very confusing, but it relates to an article that I saw published in the Monthly about Dezi Freeman, who is the sovereign citizen that killed two police officers.
So-called sovereign citizen who killed two police officers in Sydney. I'm going to explain to you why it is a what the fuck followed by a possible yes. Yeah. And because I am better at giving straight compliments than Jan, my yes goes to an excellent Aussie weekly newsletter because it's analysis on social issues and news and pop culture and art, and I just love reading it. So more on that later.
Okay, so good. You're very good at finding the kind of independent, niche, Australian value add media products.
Yeah, and you're really good at not doing that. Okay, so my no.
Kick us off, would you go? Go, what's your no?
My no is Donald Trump. And these are just his latest attacks on the press and his further slide into autocrat. So Trump on the official White House website has released a Media Offender of the Week section. And the Trump administration essentially catalogues and attacks journalists and outlets that it claims distorts coverage. And this is just like the latest in Trump's like decades-long campaign against so-called fake news. So the site features a running record of the media's false and misleading stories, a searchable hall of shame, and it categorizes different outlets and reportage based on biased, malpractice, and my personal favorite, left-wing lunacy. And visitors are urged to like stay here and stay with the truth. At the moment, those who are the media offenders of the week.
This is an official White House thing.
This is not like
this is not him on Truth Social.
No, this is like on the White House page.
Yeah, okay.
At the moment, the media offenders of the week, there are 3 contenders: the Boston Globe, CBS News, and the Independent.
And the Independent?
And the Independent.
The British Independent?
The British Independent.
Oh, so it extends to news outlets from around the world. Okay. And why have they offended Trump?
Okay, so the trigger for this round of kind of like hate and vitriol, CBS News got slammed by Trump over their coverage of, did you see that video that went out on socials? Actually, you're not on X. A video went out on socials by a Democratic senator and a bunch of Democratic lawmakers. These lawmakers all have military and intelligence backgrounds. It's essentially trying to urge American troops to refuse illegal orders. I'm just going to have a little listen to what this video is, and I'll explain why it pissed Trump off so much.
Okay.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
Okay, so you're looking a little bit confused.
I am looking a little bit confused. I had not seen that, and I don't know what they're talking about.
Okay, so
clearly, it's a well-produced video because it's like a bunch of people talking to camera.
Yeah,
saying a
it
script.
is a well-produced video. So the Trump administration has faced quite a lot of criticism over the past week for ordering strikes on suspected drug traffickers in Latin American waters, specifically alleged Venezuelan drug traffickers. There are some news reports and allegations that they're even ordering a second strike to kill survivors, which there are allegations that is a war crime, and that those orders, like ordering military to do a second strike when they've essentially intervened and stopped the so-called suspected shipping of drugs, that second strike just to kill them is
illegal. It's a war crime.
And you should. And so this video is
that's what
essentially
it's referring to.
Going, you can refuse orders if they are illegal.
Okay.
So Trump responded to these videos, to these Democrats, by saying on Truth Social that it's seditious behaviour, punishable by death. That's to quote him. And also he reposted a comment.
Is this a real thing?
This is a real thing. He reposted a comment saying, hang them. So very sane, very normal, very democratic.
I'm sorry.
Seditious behaviour, punishable by death.
I actually missed this whole thing.
And then you can see he's retweeted someone saying, hang them, George Washington would have. So when CBS then reported on, here's this video by Democratic lawmakers and a Democratic senator, here's the president saying punishable by death and reposting hang them, he got very angry.
I'm a bit embarrassed to say that I haven't been following any of this, and it does feel like quite an escalation. Because I remember like remember the Pentagon, when all of the reporters walked out of the Pentagon because Donald Trump was like, his administration is like, I'm going to put in all of these particular barriers to reporting, which means that, you can't get certain information from certain sources and you're going to be surveilled a little bit more. And the reporters kind of just walked out.
Yeah.
And now it's like, and when things happen, you're like, this is the worst thing that could happen. And then like a few weeks later, it's like, no, there's worse.
There's worse. This is part of obviously a broader pattern. You had that Pentagon walkout, but then Trump's pursued various lawsuits against New York Times, ABC, Wall Street Journal, and then those ongoing personal attacks, particularly against female reporters.
Oh, yeah.
The latest of which, he called a New York Times correspondent a third-rate reporter who is ugly both inside and out. So it's just like every time you go, surely he can't come up with anything like wackier. He seems to. But I think the bigger question about all of this is like, how seriously should you take this stupid website? Because press freedom,
the leaderboard, the White House,
the White House
media leaderboard.
Because there are some press freedom experts who have come out and say, the new page, this website further erodes traditional boundaries between the White House and independent journalism, which it absolutely does, but also noting, and I'm going to quote, people understand the obvious conflict in a presidential administration appointing itself the arbiter of media bias. And I expect that after the initial wave of publicity, few Americans will be paying attention to this latest stunt, because the gimmick is wearing thin.
I mean, that's just the perennial issue with covering Donald Trump, right? Which is like, is this a gimmick? If it's a gimmick, do we cover it? Is this not a gimmick? This feels like an escalation of authoritarianism. Like how do you respond as a media organization? Did anyone cover it? Was anyone like, we're on the shit list?
Well, I did have a look because Washington Post did. They talked about the website, but also like defended its journalism and its integrity. CBS, New York Times, BBC, who are all on this leaderboard, just ignored it. That's probably a tactical position, and a tactical decision to make. Maybe one that we should have made, but honestly, I just want to get media on that leaderboard because that would be a bit of a career goal for us to be on that leaderboard.
Oh, and would we report on it if we were? Oh,
we'd have a bit of fun with it.
Who knows?
I think we'd have a bit of fun.
Real fun. This whole thing is real fun. I'm having a great time. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's your no, understandably. Well, my no is very different. Yes. Brings us back to Australia here, and it comes to us courtesy of TikTok. Namely the TikTok Awards, and namely what several creators say happened on the red/pink carpets at the TikTok Awards, which was racist treatment. So the awards happened, depending when you're listening to this, over a week ago. However, in the last few days or so, there have been a slew of content creators that have come out and talked about being treated really poorly on the red carpet. Now, these women are Black content creators. One of them is a creator called Niel, who has 418,000 followers on TikTok. Not a small amount there with, she does like a lot of kind of, lifestyle, humor, skits. Anyway, she posted a video, and this was sort of the original.
I saw this.
Did you see?
Yes.
So she posted a video on the red carpet of her being approached by someone who had identified themselves as a TikTok employee, and they spoke to her fairly rudely. I'm going to play you the video so you can judge yourself, but it was pretty rude. And just some background here before we get to that video so it makes sense. There are two carpets at the TikTok Awards. There's one for nominees and presenters, and that's where the media is. And then there's another red carpet /wall, which is has a TikTok background, and you can take a photo of yourself as a creator there. Doesn't have the media lineup, right? We'll get to why that matters in just a second. But here is a snippet of what happened. This is the video that Niel posted.
This is for all the media.
Well, that's not our fault. That's the information.
Yeah, but this has nothing to do with you. We don't need your photo. We're not, they're not going to. What are they going to do with your photo?
Wow.
No, it's not going to go anywhere.
That's crazy.
It's not going to go
That
anywhere.
is rude as
No, but I'm saying they're working with the facts.
So sorry.
Okay, so what are they going to do with your photo? He's presumably talking about the media photographers and the paparazzi that are stationed there. What are they going to do with your photo? He's going to take your photo. What are they going to do?
Yeah, so it's this has nothing to do with you.
Yeah,
why you're on the wrong wall. But meanwhile, they had been told to head over to that particular area where they were, and she makes it clear in that video, right?
I don't want to diminish for a second her experiences. I just want to give a bit of context for how brutal red carpets can be.
Oh, they suck.
Every time I've been on a red carpet, like unless you are Naomi Watts or Nicole Kidman or Rose Byrne, like they usually, I've had times where they come to lift their camera and they put their camera back down. They're like, nah, fuck her, we're not photographing her.
Dude, do you want to like work for SBS's The Feed and go to the Logies and stand behind someone from Home and Away, and then you get onto the red carpet and the photographers are like, you can tell, like their entire face is like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah. So sometimes there's a combination of,
but they'll be like, all right, I guess I'll take a photo of whoever this person is.
Or they'll come up to you and go, oh, what's your name again? Or whatever. So it is often a very humbling experience, especially if you are not a superstar. That's been my experience.
Okay, that's fair. And I'm sure that is a common experience that people on red carpets have, all the time. As somebody who's done many, I can attest.
Yes.
However, I think that video is one thing.
Oh, I've never been spoken to.
I have never been spoken to like that on a red carpet. That's number one. And number two, it wasn't just one person. So there was another TikTok creator called Florence Beto who has 1.1 million followers. She is a beauty creator, and she posted a video talking about her experience on the red carpet of being ignored by photographers, of essentially being like hustled off and treated really poorly. And this is a person that was nominated. She was a nominee in the beauty category for Best Beauty Creator. Like TikTok had nominated her. They had flown her out there. She was just doing the thing that all nominees
were welcome at our awards, but you're not really welcome.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, hang on a second. Florence is a black woman, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. And so for it to happen to like multiple people in different ways, I think there's something else going on here.
I started seeing these videos pop up more and more on socials in the days after the TikTok awards, but I was surprised that it didn't receive more coverage. Because I went to the Daily Telegraph, because at the same time I saw so much from the Daily Telegraph about the TikTok awards.
Oh yeah, there was heaps of coverage.
And I had to kind of like do a double take on, are these the same awards? What's going on? Because on dailytelegraph and news.com.au, there were several articles, including one about creators have labelled the event a mess. So I was like, oh, this must be about what this mess is about. Nope, no black creators, no allegations of racism. There was even two stories about someone getting their dress caught in an escalator, but no story about this racism in black TikTok creators. There are also these stories about Adam Hyde, Abby Chatsfield's partner, maybe wearing the same suit that he wore to the Arias. So they had plenty of column space to look at the TikTok awards, but not by
these
allegations
creators of racism.
who between them have millions of followers.
Yeah. I did see it covered initially at the weekend by Zee Feed, which is an independent newsletter run by Crystal Andrews, who works at Crikey. It's her sort of thing that she does.
Yeah.
And also by Backcover News, which is also an independent outlet, in an article written by Mbenge Sendaluka.
Yeah.
They specifically spoke about the allegations of racism.
And then just yesterday I saw Pedestrian.
Yes, but that's because TikTok issued
a statement.
Yeah. And they reported on the statement and on the apology. But we'll get to that in a second. The point that I want to make is that there were so many creators. You know when you go on TikTok and the algorithm's so aggressive and you just like, you watch one video and then you just get served 100 of kind of similar-ish videos.
Yeah, there were so many
I was
videos.
seeing so many videos that people had made specifically about this issue. And one of them was a creator called Maxi, who has 637,000 followers on TikTok. She's been a creator for 5 years. She does like motherhood, lifestyle, fitness. And she was the person filming with Niel when that whole thing happened, right? And I just want you to listen to the video that she posted on TikTok as well.
This is not a new experience. This is something that happens to black creators and creators of color in general in Australia. We are always treated less than. People will try to gaslight us and say, it is not racism, everything's not about skin color, but it is. So glad that we got it on video, because I know no one's gonna believe us if we didn't have it on video.
Because I can't imagine somebody being spoken to and dismissed that way if they went onto the wrong carpet, if they were some, quintessentially Aussie-looking summer babe, beach babe type TikTok creator.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them being spoken to and dismissed in that way.
Yeah, so I spoke to Maxi. I gave her a call and, she was like, it feels so shitty. She was very humiliated. But the one thing that she said to me that I found like so revelatory and kind of sad, to be honest, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying, because I told her I was going to kind of bring it up on the pod, was that so much of her audience, and remember, she's got over 600,000 followers, so many of them are in the US. And so much of like the brand deals that she gets are American brands and come through the US. They don't come through the Australian content industry. And so she was saying that at some point she just decided to kind of like give up on this space because Black creators were not valued in the same way here as they are in other places, right? And I just like to kind of like bring this all back because I think that, you know, when people think racism, it can sometimes be very hard to pinpoint, and I'm sure there'll be like a lot of like fucking people in the comments like, it's not racism, yada yada yada. Everybody gets treated like
the wrong carpet.
She was on the wrong carpet.
He
blah
was
blah
just
blah.
having a bad day.
Yeah.
All of the things. Yeah.
But I just want to play you one of the things that Niel said in her video because I think it's kind of indicative of the way that racism works.
Because again, one of the biggest things that we struggle with as Black creators is being seen in Australian media. When you see these articles about TikTok content creators, you're rarely seeing the Black content creators because we're not going to do these interviews at the events. We're not going to speak to press. We're not being seen on these articles as Australian TikTok content creators. In fact, the biggest question I get, I was going to say the most common thing you guys say to me when you meet me in real life is this: I didn't know that you're from Australia. I thought you were from the UK, or I thought you lived in the US. And why do they think that? Because they don't see us in Australian media.
I'm almost certain that those articles about the dresses being stuck in an escalator were people just attending the TikTok awards.
Yeah.
They weren't finalists. They weren't anybody, you know, with hundreds of thousands of followers of notes, but they get articles about their dresses.
Yeah, exactly. But so like the question of like, oh, well, why were they there in the first place? It's like if you're a Black content creator and you feel like you've been ignored, like a lot of your deals don't come from Australia, like
or
the
people
industry,
don't even know that you're
people
Australian.
don't even know that you're Australian. They don't value you. If you're trying to get yourself, you know, like front and center or in the media because this apparatus does not aid you in doing that, like, can you blame them for wanting to do that? And then when they do, they get treated the way that they're treated. So there's actually like a kind of a structural issue of Black creators like not being valued over time.
So what did TikTok have to say when it released its statement?
Well, so the statement that TikTok released was basically saying, you know, we're deeply sorry. The weather. They blame the weather. They said the weather, yeah, I know. They said it was raining and then they had to move everybody inside and that caused a chaotic scene and
so
they're
there
deeply
were two
sorry.
carpets in the end?
There were two carpets, but they attributed the chaos on the carpets to the logistics.
To the guy saying, what are they going to do with the photograph? Rain does that sometimes. It's hard.
Oh, actually, they have responded.
Oh, because you sent a bunch of specific questions.
I sent a bunch of specific questions and I basically said, like, do you accept that there was racism at the carpet, on the carpet? Please find our statement here. Okay, well, I've already found that statement on TikTok.
The general one?
Yeah,
so they've just sent the general one back.
They've just sent the general one and please see below for further information on background. Okay, thank you. So we got just a comment on background that I can't share, which is negligible, sort of. And then the statement that they had already put on TikTok, which was like, oh, the weather made us do it. All right, cool.
Good job.
Great. Here's the thing with TikTok. They've known about exclusion of Black creators for a while because Niel has been emailing. She emailed them in 2021 about another event that Black creators were not invited to, saying, hey, you've had this event in Sydney. Black creators were not invited to this event. It really sucks that you've got so many Black creators on TikTok doing all of this work and we don't get represented at these events.
Do you know
what the hell's going on?
Was?
I think it was called the For You Fest. Okay. For You Fest in Sydney in 2021. And TikTok responded and they said, thank you for your feedback. It will inform how we plan and progress in 2022 and it's so valuable, right?
But then the rain happened. Then it was really hard again.
So one of the questions that I put to them was like, is TikTok aware that these creators contacted them in 2021 saying that they felt excluded from certain events and how are you going to redress this? What has been done in the past few years to ensure that Black creators are not excluded from events in TikTok? And I just got please find our statement here that you've already seen. And here's one thing on background that doesn't pertain to that.
That's terrible.
So yeah, that's where we're at. But shout out to all of them for speaking out because I think it is stressful to put yourself out there, to bear the brunt of like shitty comments and to feel like you're getting in TikTok's bad books and to risk a bunch of things. Like it's hard.
Especially a platform where you've built your entire following in I'd argue some of them their entire careers on that platform.
Yeah.
It'd be really tough.
Yeah. Anyway, watch this space. Let's see if it gets more coverage. It may do by the time you are listening to this podcast, by the way.
I doubt it. Let's see.
Yep. All right, that is my note. Hello, it's Janfran here. Just to let you know that next year, February 1, 2, 3 and 4, we are going to be doing a live tour in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra and Brisbane, and we would love for you to be there. So if you want to grab your tickets, we are going to leave details in the show notes somewhere below. Otherwise, you can head to our various social media platforms. The link will be in the bio. And just so you know, it's not a podcast record. It's totally different. There's going to be us. There's going to be musicians. There's going to be comedians. There's going to be in conversations. It's going to be great. Early February, get your tickets. See you there. All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the letter. I refer to it as the letter, but there will be people listening that don't exactly know what the letter is. So let me just give you some background. This week, 2 years ago, so in late November, early December 2023, a bunch of Australian journalists signed a letter, an open letter, calling for better coverage on Israel and Palestine. So around 330 journalists, including the ABC's MEAA National House Committee, the Guardian's House Committee, I think the MEAA itself backed the letter. I signed it, you signed it, Peter Grester signed it, Tony Armstrong signed it, Benjamin Law signed it.
Deep cuts Anton Issa, who was at The Guardian at the time, many, many, many more, including journalists at The Conversation and Schwartz Media.
Yeah, there was a bunch. And there were others that wanted to sign it but didn't or couldn't because they felt like they would be, maligned in their newsroom. And frankly, they had very good reason to think that. We're going to get to that in a second. But I think before we kind of get to all of that, let's just talk about what the letter was calling for back then. So it had kind of 8 things that it was calling for. The first, adhere to truth over both sidesism. 2, center the human tragedy in the coverage of the conflict. 3, apply as much professional skepticism when prioritizing or relying on uncorroborated Israeli government and military sources to shape coverage as is applied to Hamas. 4, give adequate coverage to credible allegations of war crimes, genocide, ethnic cleansing and apartheid, and don't avoid using the term Palestine where appropriate.
It went on to suggest the need to provide historical context when referencing the October 7 Hamas attacks on Israel. The conflict did not start on October 7. Provide full and fair coverage of Australia's growing anti-war movement, including the large weekly protests in capital cities. Be transparent about journalists who have been on all expenses paid trips to Israel organised by pro-Israeli government groups. And finally, trust Australian journalists of Palestinian, Arab, Muslim and Jewish backgrounds to do their jobs. Diversity is an asset in newsrooms and should be harnessed to enrich coverage.
Okay, well, of those last 2, I think we can say probably haven't been done to the best of the industry's ability or at all, potentially. But when the letter happened...
The backlash, the blow up, the punishment.
Yes. And I think it's important for everybody listening to kind of like get a real sort of sense of how swift and I would say kind of like brutal and unilateral it was. So the SMH's executive editor posted a message in the Slack channel on behalf of the paper's leadership.
So that's their internal kind of comms channel.
Basically saying that any staff who signed the letter would be taken off Gaza stories, right? And this was her...
And they still are. They were taken off then. Okay. And they're still taken off now.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
This was her justification.
The SMH and the Age hold a very significant place in Australian society because of the mastheads' reputations for independent journalism and reporting bound by the highest standards of impartiality. It's a strong-held tenet that our journalists' personal agendas do not influence our reporting on news events. If I didn't laugh just then, I'm going to actually cry. I'm not joking.
I love the way you emphasize personal agendas.
Personal agendas.
I also,
because like, when you want your profession to do better,
personal agenda.
It's a personal agenda, babes.
Yeah, it can't be a professional duty. No, it can't be any kind of need to contribute to, I don't know, a vocation that you've been part of for the last 15 years. No, or a culmination of a decades-long build-up. It must just be that you woke up in the morning and decided to have a personal agenda. The ABC's Director of News, Justin Stevens, said at the time that signing the petition may bring into question your ability to cover the story impartially. And that maintaining trust and credibility as an ABC staff member means you forego the opportunity to share your opinions, just opinions there, about stories on which you report or may be involved in.
Yeah, look, I've got a few things to
How
say
does one
here.
reflect on this in the year of our Lord 2025, knowing what we know?
But let's just go back to the end of 2023, because just a few weeks after Justin Stevens talked about the, bringing into question your impartiality, those words were essentially uttered to me when I was fired in that room by an ABC middle manager for sharing a Human Rights Watch post. That post questioned my impartiality, that could have brought the ABC into disrepute. We now know that's a crock of shit, because it was the ABC's partiality to Israel lobbyists, pro-Israel lobbyists, that was found by a federal court. So that entire terminology, your impartiality might be called into question. It's like, oh, lol, like there's a federal court verdict to show that is absolutely untrue. And if there's an impartiality problem, it is not for those wanting better coverage of Palestine.
Yes, indeed. No one signed it on SBS. Fuck, SBS is a whole... Girl, that place needs an entire episode.
I think what a lot of people don't know was that there was another petition in 2021, a similar letter.
Yeah.
And SBS staff, anybody who signed it at the time, were pretty much forced to remove their names by management.
So there you go. SBS has been chilled since 2021, so nobody signed this letter. That's not to say that people didn't want to.
We know that they wanted to. Yeah.
The Guardian, 3 editors of The Guardian, the US, the UK, the Australian Guardian, were all like, oh, look, we're going to have to add a little something to our editorial guidelines, which means that you cannot sign open letters.
So they changed. Their response was they updated their guidelines that you're not allowed to sign open letters anymore.
Yes, because it can be perceived by whom as a conflict of interest and hamper their ability to report in a fair and fact-based way. A little tidbit about The Guardian. What was very hilarious at the time that they handed down this decree was that if you went to Catherine Viner's Twitter, she is the UK editor of The Guardian, the bigwig in The Guardian, the very last thing that she had tweeted was her signing an open letter.
Not all open letters are created equally. It depends which lobbyists we piss off.
And saying we must stand up for press freedom, but you do not have the freedom to sign a petition. So the media was mad, but academics were also mad.
Very mad.
And there were some academics...
They were concerned, very concerned.
Distressed. Yeah. In Sydney and Melbourne. There was one gentleman named Dennis Muller who works at the University of Melbourne. He was writing in The Conversation, and he said that the letter had diminished the profession of journalism.
I'm a bit more conflicted here with Dennis. I remember reading that and being like, brother, what? But then it's not all 0 stars for Dennis, because he went on to cover my case against the ABC quite extensively, and he was highly critical of the ABC's behaviour. And I felt covered all of kind of the nuances and the different parties and the lobbyists quite fairly. But I do want to point out in that particular article something that I remember reading at the time that raised my eyebrows. Into kind of defending what the media outlets did in response, such as SMH and Age pulling off anybody who signed that letter from ever reporting on Gaza openly. He says, those 2 newspapers, SMH and The Age, have traditionally taken a strict line on these issues, and their decision this time is consistent with that tradition. Many years ago, a Herald reporter was taken off the reporting of state politics when he declared his membership of the Labor Party. I'm like, I'm pretty sure nobody declared a membership to the IDF or to Hamas. So not sure how that stacks up.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, we're not members of any of these sides.
Any of these parts. I'm not even a member of the United Nations. I'm not a member of any.
I'm not a member of anything.
Anything.
Yeah, I'm literally just a journalist. That's like, I don't know, maybe our profession can be better in this regard.
Yeah.
Maybe How is that the same?
Hilarious.
But also this idea of like, oh, you have a membership to the Labor Party, you should be precluded from reporting on all matters of politics. It's like patently bullshit. Hello, Barry Cassidy used to work for Bob Hawke.
Yeah.
Like Barry Cassidy, who then went on to be one of the most high-profile journalists at the ABC. And respected. And hosted a political show. Like this stuff is so arbitrarily applied time and time and time again. That's what rings the most alarm bells in my mind.
And this one, I guess I really struggled with. Monica Attard, who is a UTS academic and part of the Centre for Media Transition. She's a former host of Media Watch. I used to work at Media Watch as a researcher. We've worked together in various capacities and been friends for many years, and we really disagree on this.
Okay.
And I guess her main gripes with the petition, because she wrote an article for UTS saying that, about this slipping into advocacy journalism and how, warning about the dangers of advocacy journalism. And her other criticism was that the petition didn't cite examples in the petition. Like we didn't cite when we said, centre
the human element we didn't cite an example of when it wasn't the case.
Don't do both sidesism, treat IDF claims with skepticism, that we needed some examples, that we maybe needed to add an addendum or an appendix, which is weird because I've never seen that in any petitions. But whatever, that was a criticism.
Yeah, it's not an academic study, but sure, I take that point, yeah. Okay. By George, do we have some examples now?
Lord. We had plenty of examples then, but boy, do we have more now.
Yeah. There was one bit in the piece that she wrote where she said the petition writers also appear to be asserting is that reporters should be able to give prominence to voices asserting that Israel's intention is to commit genocide in the absence of any judicial or even United Nations determination. Well, the latter's happened now, but we'll move on. Yeah, as we wrote in our last newsletter, for journalists to use the language is a significant burden and critically slides dangerously towards advocacy.
Oh, okay, firstly.
So to say like this is a genocide is sliding towards advocacy.
Yeah, because
am I clear on this?
Well, in the absence of any judicial or United Nations determination, a couple of things here. Firstly, we know how many years it takes for the International Court to conclude genocide. We know that, and we also know that it's usually after the genocide is so far advanced, if not complete.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
So there's questions around like what is the media's role in complicity and in also like the reporting that prevents a genocide from continuing in real time.
There was so much evidence of their intent and evidence of the devastations and warnings from human rights groups.
And you were saying report on that adequately, give that adequate weight.
Give that adequate weight. We're not saying pretend that the International Court has made its decision.
Yeah, I know. Even looking back at this like now 2 years later, you're like, oh my God, what have we done or not done?
The writing wasn't just on the wall. It was streaming. It was live streamed. It was broadcast everywhere.
In terms of that word, this is a point that I just want to linger on this point for a little bit, right? Because this idea that journalists using a particular word when there has been no decree or no final judgment from a world court slides dangerously into advocacy. Did the ABC slide dangerously into advocacy when they used the word reporting on the Rwanda genocide in 1995? Because they did. Jonathan Holmes did a report from Rwanda in 1995 and used that word specifically. Here it is.
There have been massacres in plenty in the tortured history of Rwanda. But this was something different. This was genocide. Planned and deliberate. Authorized from the top. Widespread, ruthless and barbaric.
That's a report from the ABC on the Rwanda genocide in 1995.
When was the genocide ruling?
The first conviction for genocide came in 1998. There was no conviction for genocide. The court had not handed down a final ruling or decision. And yet, with a full chest, the ABC, and I'm not saying they're wrong, by the way. I don't think they are.
No.
But with a full chest can say
it arbitrarily and depending on which genocide.
Correct. But they can say with a full chest, this is genocide before any international ruling. But now, if we were to do that, oh dear, we're sliding so dangerously into advocacy.
Yeah, so let's stay with Jonathan Holmes for just a moment, because Jonathan Holmes is also a former Media Watch host who's also been quite outspoken about this past couple of years. In June 2025, he wrote a piece for ABC Alumni about the verdict handed down in the federal court, my case against the ABC. Firstly, I will note that he prefaced and repeated up the top twice that the biggest mistake in all of this, the astonishing cock-up, to quote, was that the ABC hired me. That to him was the most astonishing thing.
That's astonishing. That's the most.
But let me park that to a side.
Okay.
When explaining part of the reasons why, to quote, she had ferociously attacked the Netanyahu government, accusing its radical minister for defense and others of genocide.
Wow. Okay.
Firstly, it's so loaded that I had ferociously attacked them. Like, did he want me to do it with like pink ribbon and some confetti?
Nicely.
Yeah, like just talk about genocide nicely. Because when he talked about genocide, there have been massacres plenty in the tortured history of Rwanda. I'm going to put Gaza in there. There have been massacres plenty in the tortured history of Gaza, but this was something different. This was genocide planned and deliberate, authorized from the top, widespread, ruthless and barbaric. True. True in the end of October, true in the end of November, true today.
But advocacy, if we say it about Palestine, probably very good reporting if you say it about Rwanda.
And so both of these Media Watch hosts, I don't know, maybe their views have changed in between genocides, or does it depend who's being genocided?
Well, it does depend because, this isn't just about the ABC and Jonathan Holmes or Rwanda. The Sydney Morning Herald used the term in 2017 talking about the Rohingya genocide. It was an editorial written by the Sydney Morning Herald where it said, let me just get the exact quote, "It has gone far beyond a mere humanitarian crisis. This, the deliberate killing of a specific ethnic group, is genocide." Yeah. The Sydney Morning Herald declared it to be genocide. There was no case before the court at this point. This was in 2017.
Now, to bring it far more contemporary, in November 2025, on the ABC on Saturday Extra, this is the headline for an episode about Sudan. Paramilitary group RSF carrying out genocide with impunity in Sudan. I have never seen something like that other than for the ABC when the United Nations came out with its genocide ruling in September this year. They would say
according to the UN,
and then very quickly have a Israel denial. Right. But to suggest that the IDF is carrying out a genocide with impunity in Gaza, I've never seen those words alone, without a qualification, without a denial. And so this is when we call bullshit.
So you can use the word for Rwanda. You can use the word for the Rohingya in Myanmar. You can use the word for Sudan as the media and hold yourself up to a high standard of ethical reporting. But the minute you use the word for Palestine, guess what? You're an advocate. You're an activist. You can't be trusted.
You're preempting the World Court's ruling. You're being ferocious. You're upsetting some people.
Yep.
Anyway, well, the academics wanted some examples.
Yes, one thing with examples was that as the letter was being written, I assume around about the time that the letter was being written, there were actually academics that were looking into some of the reporting. Now, to do that, it takes time, right?
Years. I've worked on academic partnerships and research years,
usually
about 3 years to do robust, long-term
reporting, right. Yeah. But in that time, there was Susan Carland, who was from Monash University, working with the Islamophobia Register, looked at reporting on Instagram specifically, and there's reasons why they specifically focused on Instagram, between October 7 and November 7. This was round about the time that the letter itself was being formulated because it came out towards the end of November, right? Mm-hmm. But they basically looked at ABC News, the Daily Oz, the Australian, news.com.au, 9 News, and the Daily Telegraph on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? And they found that there was a pro-Israel bias, particularly when it came to humanizing Israelis. I'll give you an example. They had a humanizing test, right, which was like this minimum standard to meet what they thought was a humanizing coverage. There was 3 criteria. 1 was provide at least a first name for the person, show their face, and use at least some of their own words. They're the 3. What they found was that only 1 of the 6 accounts passed the test for Palestinians, while 5 of the 6 passed the test for Israelis. So there was much more humanizing coverage of Israelis according to their criteria than there were of Palestinians.
So I guess you can say because of the period in the month following October 7 and given the horrible death toll and the attacks on October 7, that there were obviously a lot of Israeli stories to be told. And that is fair.
Sure.
However, you also need to consider, but by then, in that period, Israel had killed 11,000 Palestinians.
Yes.
So
exactly.
There's almost a 10-fold casualty rate to choose from in terms of, and I know it's horrible, these metrics are horrible, but if you want to show a name and a face, you've got 11,000 to choose from.
Yes. And this would have been the reporting that the journalists compiling the letter would have been seeing and would have been reacting to. Mm-hmm. And maybe they should have included those examples in the letter. Sure, they didn't. That was probably remiss. I don't know. But they were there.
Yeah.
And we know that because they were being compiled at the time by academics and their research came out later in 2024.
Yeah. But anyway, that was then, this is now.
Yes.
It's late 2025. Jan, where are we at?
Well, I look at the letter and I think everything stands. And if I was to kind of give it a report card, I would say that journalists had a hard time talking about it then and have a hard time talking about it now and have had a very hard time talking about it for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And, there's so many fucking examples. I think like to streamline this a little bit, let's just like look at the last week.
Yeah, sure. And I think this is so telling. We're talking about journalists having a hard time talking about it, but veteran journalist Kerry O'Brien, former host of 7:30, was at the Walkleys last week. The Walkleys are the Night of Nights for journalism, the Logies of journalism, if you will. And in his speech, he got up, which was then republished by The Guardian. But I want to tell you, an extract was republished by The Guardian. I want to tell you with how his speech starts. First things first, it would be remiss of me not to refer specifically to the appalling and outrageous casualty list of Palestinian journalists. So The Guardian then publishes that. They have a headline which is "Press freedom is destroyed from Gaza to America. Don't think it can't happen here. Kerry O'Brien." And so they talk about a whole bunch of attacks on press freedom. Then over at Sydney Morning Herald, who seem to like going with remiss, their headline is "Journalism is not a crime. Albanese said he's yet to prove he meant it." Guess which part they cut out, which won't surprise you, Jan. Maybe we should shock and surprise our listeners.
I don't think it will, but
they cut out the opening, which was, "It would be remiss of me not to refer," and then to talk about, because Kerry O'Brien then went on to talk about how journalists aren't allowed into Gaza, how they're documenting their own genocide, and then it was scathing of the treatment of Palestinians. Oh no, over at Sydney Morning Herald, they're like, let's get this out. In the infinite space on the internet, we don't have enough room for this first paragraph.
Hey, Kerry, you know the bit that you thought was the most important part of your speech, because you said that first things first, and then you put it first, and you said it would be remiss not to write about it. Yeah, we're not going to include that.
We're just going to take it out.
Are you sure? Yep. All right. I guess you can emphasize a different thing, but the man just said it would be remiss not to include it, and you've not included it, which I guess in his estimation would be remiss. No? Weird.
It's so fucked. So Crikey, Danny, the media writer at Crikey, went to SMH and asked about it. He did an article and asked about asked Kerry and also asked SMH, why was this the most important part removed? And they were like, we just wanted to make it about Australia. We didn't have enough column space in the infinite spaces of the internet. There wasn't enough digital space in the ether of the cloud or whatever. I understand, because I have written pieces for SMH in their kind of opinion section. Sometimes there is a version that is truncated for print, we literally have 700-word column space. But online, it can be as long as you bloody well like. And if you are going to truncate it, why would you lose the most important point? Okay, so another example from a few days ago, and perhaps not many people will know this if they're just following Australian sources, but an Israeli drone strike killed 2 people. Not just 2 people, it killed 2 children. 2 children who were collecting firewood. I did not see it reported in a single Australian media outlet. Jan, did you? I had a look around. I did not see it. I saw it on Al Jazeera, and then I saw it on Middle East Eye. I think I even saw it on the BBC, but I did not see it in an Australian news outlet.
I didn't see it.
And if you went to the ABC's website on Monday, which I did, and this is a day or so after it happened, I went to the World News section, and the only story you got about anything Gaza-Israel related is Benjamin Netanyahu asking for a pardon. He's asking for a pardon because he's up for corruption charges nationally. So then I go back to point 2 of the letter, which is center the human tragedy in the coverage of the conflict.
Yeah.
Where is that? These 2 brothers collecting firewood.
8 and 11.
Is it too much to ask that we do that? And I thought, maybe
apparently it is. Apparently it slides very dangerously into advocacy.
And I hit more, so you kind of scroll down to the bottom of the page, you want more articles. I hit more 5 times until it wouldn't generate any more articles. I'm like, surely something's going to be in here. Surely something's going to be here. No.
But I did see on SBS an entire snippet of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech asking for a pardon. That's what I saw.
So an alleged war criminal who we now know is committing a genocide, according to the United Nations and every leading human rights organization, let us help him or amplify his message to not be held accountable for corruption nationally. Do we believe if the letter was written today, if anything would be different? I reckon public sentiment has shifted too much. The outlets themselves will not change. This is something you pointed out in a conversation we had earlier. Audiences will change, and if the outlets want to keep up with audiences, they'll be forced to change. I think they're at the point now where public sentiment is shifting so strongly against Israel and also the media's role that they would feign care. Like they feign care about kind of diversity and representation and do nothing about it. They'll be like, we're going to have a working group and a steering committee and we're going to do some kind of like internal self-reflection and then we're going to put it through the shredder when nobody's looking. So I think they know that the optics would be terrible to react in the way they reacted.
Right.
So they would feign change, create some kind of subcommittee where it's the emotional labor of everybody who cares and everybody who's impacted the most and punish the most and then do fuck all about it. I think that's where we're at. Is there an appetite to actually self-reflect?
No.
And realise
No, I don't
think there is that appetite. Instead, they will triple down and change all policies.
And change the optics of it.
Yeah.
And still use that language of you're an activist, you're an advocate, you can't be impartial, you bring our impartiality into question. They'll still use all of that language.
Yeah.
I don't think any of that will change.
The goalposts just keep moving. It's like, we have to wait for this, we have to wait for this. But at SBS, even after the Albanese government recognised Palestine as a state, what did SBS do?
Well, they sent out a memo saying that you're not to use the word Palestine when you're talking about Gaza or the West Bank or East Jerusalem. Like even when they're like, well, we're actually just going to wait for the federal government and the federal government changes its tune and they're like, no. Okay, cool.
So I think they're just really willing to just shift all goalposts or burn the goalposts in defense of the status quo.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we did that with Rwanda. Look, maybe Jonathan Holmes did that with Rwanda.
He shouldn't have.
Wrong.
Yeah.
We're not saying he was wrong. We're saying you're wrong now.
Yes. Yeah, but they'll go, we were wrong there. Nah, sorry. Actually, we shouldn't have called the Rohingya genocide a genocide. You're right.
Yeah.
So rather than like the reporting on Palestine being brought to the same standard as the reporting on everything else, no. They'll change the reporting on everything else to the same standard as Palestine. They will just abandon any past kind of like principles or whatever it is that they had around the reporting of other genocides. Just so they don't have to admit that maybe they got it wrong on this one. That's what I reckon will happen. So there you go. Did we say that this was a safe space? No. We did say it wasn't.
We did.
We did say it wasn't.
We were honest about that.
Yeah. All right, let's turn this ship around.
My yes goes to Zee Feed.
Zee Feed. And
we mentioned Zee Feed earlier. Zee Feed was the first outlet or digital outlet
to report on the TikTok awards that I saw. No, the other back cover news was. But Zee Feed was pretty close second. Yeah.
Anyway, so Zee Feed is a page on Instagram. There's 26,000 followers. It's run by Crystal Andrews, and she is also a reader's editor at Crikey. It is, in her own words, commentary and critical analysis of news, social issues, digital and pop culture from a proudly, loudly intersexual and feminist perspective. It's independent, which I love. She's a woman of colour. I just think she writes so well. Her essays are excellent. So I suggest you subscribe to the newsletter to get those essays. And her stuff on unpacking the racism allegations at TikTok, that's what first caught my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also this really good essay a few weeks back about Teen Vogue, when Teen Vogue closed down. And unionism, which I was like, what? And so when I read about it, I mean, it's always great when you read something that you learn something new. And she was talking about how Teen Vogue might be the only mainstream legacy publication for young women that publishes about unions and workers' rights. She also listed a whole bunch of articles covered by Teen Vogue in the past 12 months about workers' rights and the union movement. And she also went on to explore that, any media outlet purporting to be progressive that does gender but doesn't do anything about class is just bullshit. And I was like, that is so interesting because so often the media is very middle class. It is very city-centric. And I was just like, you know what? She's always getting me to think and she writes beautifully. So that is Zee Feed, Z-E-E Feed. And there will be a link in the show notes so that my yes goes to Crystal Andrews.
Oh, okay. That is a nice yes. I have a... do I have a yes? I have a what is happening that maybe turns into a yes. Okay, so let me just explain. I'm scrolling as I am wont to do on the internet. I see a post on Instagram by The Monthly, Okay, so the monthly is like it's a journal, essays, criticism,
Pretty highbrow.
Yeah. The journal of the intelligentsia, one might say, right? I see an Instagram post by the monthly in big writing, is Dezi Freeman the modern day Ned Kelly?
What? The dude who shot 2 police officers and is on the run?
Yeah. Yeah, but
I guess Ned Kelly shot some people, but that's a very weird thing to say.
Let's just go back to Dezi Freeman for a second. So yes, he is the man that killed 2 cops and injured a third in August in Popanka in northeast Victoria, right? He is a self-proclaimed sovereign citizen, which is somebody that does not believe in the government and is sovereign of the government, right? He fled. After doing that, is currently on the run.
It's been months now.
It has been months. The cops cannot find him. He fled into bushland, okay?
Yeah.
If you've had that thought of like, oh, maybe that does like resemble Ned Kelly, may I just counsel you to have a second thought before you commit that to writing?
That was your yes, Jan.
Hang on a second. So that caught my attention and I was like, this is what is happening here? Because I mean, to be clear, the cops were going to this man's residence to serve a warrant based on historic sex offences. Okay?
Was Ned Kelly a sex offender? Not that I know of.
Not that I know of.
Anything's possible, but yes, strange.
And not only that, but sovereign citizens have been on the radar of police, at least New South Wales police, as being a possible terrorist threat. Possible terrorist threat. Let me repeat.
Can I just say,
for 10 years.
If like Dezi Freeman was a man by any other name or had a dark beard or whatever, he would not get this kind of like legendary status comparison.
Are you saying that if somebody who has a, I don't know, throwing out their Muslim name,
or it was an Aboriginal man or an Indian man or pretty much any other man other than anyway?
No, they would not be compared and contrasted to a Australian folk hero, I guess. No. So I'm sitting here wondering, like, what the hell is the monthly? Like, is the monthly trying to rage bait me right now? Yes, it did.
So this is coming yes. So now you want to read it.
But I did read it because it's written by Don Watson, who is a very
good,
acclaimed, well-known Australian writer. And frankly, the article is not that at all. It does not glorify Ned Kelly or Dezi Freeman. It doesn't really hugely compare the two. It's about northeast Victoria. It's about a place more so than it is about people.
The place where the shooting happened?
Yes, and the surrounds and what is, causing the people there to be so disaffected. And it's quite thoughtful and it's quite evocative and it's a decent piece of writing, which I think has been treated very badly with this headline on Instagram, which is not the headline of the piece, by the way.
Or treated very well because you clicked. If you were to see a headline that says, the environmental surrounds of northeast Victoria or whatever it was, and explained the natural scenery. I'm trying to turn a yes into more of a yes.
Do not turn my initial no from me on this into a yes. This is not. This is a no. Is Dezi Freeman the modern day Ned Kelly? No, and also do not ask that question.
Okay, so that
on
is a no,
Instagram, the monthly.
But the piece is thoughtful and well written.
But I think the piece is worth reading, put it that way, and has been done a disservice by its comparison here. And it's often because so one neighbour's like, I don't know, maybe it is like Ned Kelly. But then another neighbour was like, no, I don't think it's like Ned Kelly. It's like, what? Don't use one arbitrary neighbour's quote as the headline piece for your Instagram sell.
Yeah, okay. I think you feel conflicted because you got duped and rage baited and then you actually read the article.
Well, no, I don't feel conflicted about this because I think, as you said, if it was a Muslim man, an Aboriginal man that was that had killed cops, are you fucking
Can you imagine
kidding?
An immigrant, like an Indian immigrant who had killed a cop?
Are you joking?
Yeah.
You think they would get any kind of treatment like this? Abso-fucking-lutely not. And let me tell you,
our terrorism level would be changed. ASIO would be coming out. Oh my God.
And we'd be hearing a lot more stories about
cops would have new search powers.
Exactly.
Oh
and yet this white guy, sovereign citizen, terrorist threat, according to a police report from 10 years ago, gets compared to a folk hero. No. So it's a no, but I guess read the article.
Kobe, she needs more of a therapy dog.
Kobe.
Go, Kobe. She needs more help. We're getting the dog to go and help Jan manage her emotions.
Yes. Here he is, my prince. On that note, we come to the end of our show this week.
And if you want us to continue to have existential breakdowns by a microphone, you can subscribe, become a supporter of ET Media, keep us sustainable, keep us talking, This is hard stuff, but it's important stuff that we do.
Yes, we are ET Media, ETTE media.com. You can head over there and subscribe. Truly, with your dollars is the biggest way to show support because it does keep us making this podcast and just continuing to be real and sad whenever we feel real and sad, but also not real and sad when we don't feel real and sad. You know what I mean? It's the gamut of emotions here. Yeah. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of We Used to Be Journos. We will catch you all next week, and I'm sure catch you all at the live show in Sydney on February 2nd with our special guest Claudia Karvan and Fresh the Lion and myself and Antoinette Lattouf. It is going to be a lot of fun. We are so excited. Make sure you get your tickets. We'll put them all in the show notes and in our various social media platforms. Anything else that we need to add before we say adieu?
We haven't forgotten about you, Canberra and Brisbane.
No, coming soon.
Our special guests will be announced imminently.
Imminently indeed. So keep those eyes out and we will catch you all next week. Bye-bye.